Live. Welcome everybody to another Saturday night live PD chat show. There's been some fantastic spectaculars been launching just before we actually started, so everyone's safe, which is fantastic. And this year we actually launched a brand new drum camp, the BD camp, and as we can sort of see on joining us tonight, we have with our obviously resident panel, Rob and Pete. Give us a wave, Pete. Give us a wave, Rob.
Yay!
Yay! And obviously Ian Palmer with our special guest. Thank you, Ian. Welcome. How are you?
I'm really well. It's my pleasure. It's great to see you all.
Good, amazing.
We've got the band back together.
We've got the band back together. So the reason for the whole launch thing is that we actually had the PD camp back in February. Fantastic event over the weekend. The whole discussion was today is like, what is the importance of drum camps and drum shows within the sort of the drumming calendar and the whole community part of it. So, Ian, I'd like to bring to you first as our guest this week. How do you see these events within the drumming calendar and what they mean to you?
Clearly, absolutely vital, and we're dealing here with grassroots level. We're introducing people to drumming, and I think for the whole music industry these events are important. We're getting people involved with playing drums, obviously helping those people that are more proficient, but I just think to be able to get people to enjoy playing this instrument, to get the kids off their PlayStations and Xboxes and get them into music, get them into something practical, and hopefully to share the joy that I had at the age of 9 in picking up sticks for the first time. So these are absolutely vital, and all power to you, mate, for doing the drum camp that we did together just a couple of months ago.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a fantastic event. Rob, I'd like to come to you. What's the importance? Because I know, you've all done all sorts of the different shows, but you've done Stuttgart as well, haven't you? So we've been over there. Frankfurt. We went over to Frankfurt to the Frankfurt show. How's the importance of for you these drum camps and these big things that happen in our community?
I think it's, like Ian said, it just has to happen. I mean, drummers love to hang out. Drummers, the only people that I know that really do clinics and hangs well and drum camps. No one else does it. Guitarists are far too, this is my lick, you're not having it. And other instrumentalists don't want to share, whereas drummers do. And I think it's a place we can all get together and hang out and share information, see the new products. I think it's really good that we can hang out with the people who are making the products and selling the products. I think that's really healthy as well. And for me, I mean, it's good for all of us. We all do clinics at these as well, so that's always good. And to meet people who write to you when you're in rhythm and various things. And I just think it's the connection. It's all about connection, and that being in lockdown for 2 months, it's like I don't feel it anymore. I mean, I feel it so much more now than ever. I'd kill to go to one of those drum shows and hear those people banging those drums for 15 minutes. That drives you mad. I would love to be there right now, I have to say. But don't you agree that drummers love sharing? You can go to like a clinic. You can sit next to a guy who's just started, and you can sit next to a guy you think, oh, there's a total professional player coming to check this guy out. And we can all talk. No one's like, hey, man, what's your thing? Everyone is totally cool, and I just love that. I think that's what the drumming community is all about. And the thing is, you said Frankfurt. Frankfurt is suffering. The drum part of the show is suffering. I mean, I haven't been there for maybe 2 years now, but it was in a bad way. The last time I was there, they were saying that the drum thing's getting smaller and smaller. Everyone's looking at NAMM, and it's a shame because there's nowhere in Europe for us all to go, apart from obviously the Manchester show and London and stuff. But apart from that,
just before we get on to Pete, if you're watching this, please like the Facebook page. If you notice, it's a big kind of like, I managed to get this the other day. So go to the website, Facebook, please like the page, because obviously you get all of this coming to you straight and you get notifications. If you're watching on replay, please tag in the comment box hashtag replay. And then obviously you can still comment there and we'll still get and everything else. A couple of highs first of all. Mike Tubman, hello. Regulars here. Dino Henny, hello. He says, hope you guys are all well. Well, I'm well. You guys all well?
I think so.
Great.
I am great.
Yeah, great. So just basically another pound heavier and another inch on our locks. But apart from that, we're okay. Well, apart from Robbie just shaved it last week.
I've lost all mine.
Yeah. So coming to you, Pete. The importance of these things. What do they mean to you?
Well, I think both the guys have pointed out the very strong sense of community that we all share and enjoy, and how these things have always worked in right up until March of this year. I think what's important to consider is how we're going to come out of all this, and it's very possible to have a big room and have a socially distanced drum camp where you've got guys sitting at drum sets or sitting at practice pads 2 meters apart. It's possible to have a display somewhere like Olympia and have the trade stands so spread out that there's room for everybody to go around in a one-way pattern and not get too close. So I think these kind of events are very, very strong in terms of being very quickly able to re-establish them when we get a little bit closer to our old normality. And say, you think about the space that we had at the Palace Drum Camp, where there's there's plenty of people there, but nobody's on top of one another, and they've all got room to spread out and sit with their practice pads and participate in the tuition that's going on. And I see that as being something that would be very relatively easy to re-establish once things get up and running again. And I don't know about you, but I feel that the area that troubles me most are the small and medium-sized venues. How they're going to come?
Yeah.
That's where I'm working. The jazz venues around London and further afield, and the kind of medium-sized theatres. These are the places that are going to need very special care and attention and support from all of us in order for them to get back into some sort of state of financial health and security. But I see things like drum camps, clinics, drum shows. It may be the case that you might have to limit numbers. You can have one in, one out. And you come in and play a flam paradiddle and get it wrong, so you have to go out. The next guy comes in. But just using what we have learned in these extraordinary circumstances since March, I think some of those protocols of social distancing could be very readily applied to certain types of drum events.
Yeah.
I was also going to add as well, just to what Pete said there, that it's not only what we're learning to do through social distancing and all the measures that are in place at the moment, but actually there's some positives that have come out of this. We wouldn't have been doing this live stream this evening if it wasn't for COVID-19. And I've got friends who are saying actually working online, they're making, in some ways, through masterclasses, and I'm referring actually to Don Famularo, saying that doing masterclasses online, doing teaching online, he's having a great time actually. Business is really good. So I think clearly we've got to get out of this, and clearly you've got to, we're going to get the drum camps back up and running again, and the masterclasses, the clinics that you run. But I think we've got an extra string to our bow as well with the online side of things. We could even consider streaming the drum camp online.
As I say, everything's a possibility at the moment, isn't it? So it's I suppose, for me, obviously being the major sort of organisers of these kind of things, it's like possibilities. What's the possibilities? What we can do? So it's like having a chat. Because obviously we had the Palace Drum Clinic, we had a very large grant given us from the Arts Council. Took a couple of years to basically get it, but it's to hopefully make it sustainable, which means just like that we could do the drum camp, we could do other stuff like that, and just I've got to have this kind of audience, building an audience over that kind of year. How are we going to do that? And it's for me, it's how am I going to do this in this period where we can't do anything. So obviously, then the online kind of thing come with, like, I hope everyone's been watching the PD countdown. I don't know if everyone knows, but it's always a C, isn't it? Palace Drum, whatever C's. We've got countdown, we've got the camp, we've got the clinic, we've got the chat show. So trying to think of another C we can do. But it's and then from that, just basically just chatting to a few people, chatting Rob in particular. It was like, well, what, I've got this idea. He goes, why don't you do it, man? Do it. And I'm so glad, because we're now in our 6th week or something. We've had some fantastic people. I'm just looking. I've got some fantastic people coming up. Got some fantastic people here. And it's and we're getting out there to you guys. We're not sitting down, we're not playing at you. This is our chat, our time is basically for you guys to actually answer some questions. And we've actually got some few people watching at the moment, so I'll just say a few hellos. Dave Patrick, hello. Phoebe, again, I've got a big fan crowd there. Thank you, Mum and Dad. They're watching again. So Matthew Devonish, Martin Ollie, Richard Horton, Ian Stocks, Ben Roberts, Sharon Roberts, Kenneth Everett. So our regulars are coming back fantastic. Thank you ever so much for watching these, because obviously we'd just be talking to ourselves, which, to be honest, we generally do all the time.
We used to. Yeah.
So we've got a few comments here. So I'll just read a couple out. So Martin basically saying the Vintage Drum Show and Commentary, which is our dear friend Simon Wagstaff's show, might be difficult this year if social distancing isn't lifted by then. Well, yes, and it's one of those shows where obviously it is. These kind of little things have happened. There was 2 basically big shows. There was the London Drum Show and the National Drum Fair. They were worlds apart regardless, what they offered people. But there were 2 big identities within that calendar. If we just go back to how the London Drum Show and the National Drum Fair was, because obviously you all guys, because obviously Pete, you're still our vice president because it's still an entity. Ian, you virtually came on the committee and then we didn't have a show. I don't know what that meant, but it's you're all involved. Rob, you've been an avid punter, and then we got you along for the clinics and everything else. That kind of show, how does it differ? And do we still need that kind of show then to the big London drum shows, or like the UK and the Manchester shows? Ian, I'll pass that on to you.
We absolutely need to try and cultivate this industry. The drum companies at the moment, if we take it back again just to the manufacturers, they're struggling at the moment. We're all struggling. So we're trying to dig something out of this. And as I keep going on about to a lot of friends, is that there are so many positives with the online side of things. Absolutely. But the more we can do to promote our instrument, the better off not just the drumming world, but the better off the better off the music industry is, full stop. So I do absolutely. I think the only thing is at the moment, with the shows is clearly going to be getting people. I come from the airline industry, so they're very worried about getting passengers flying again. Getting people out is going to be a challenge, isn't it, when we come out of this situation? So I think it's going to be a slow build, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah, Pete, you've been involved obviously with both sides, the London Drum Show and the National Drum Fair. Obviously, so they are two different entities, aren't they?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Yeah, I wouldn't say that they necessarily appeal to different audiences, but it's what they offer that's very different. It's to polarize it very simply. On the one hand, you've got all this amazing vintage stuff, collectible stuff, rarities, things that are no longer in production that people just like to see, and a lot of people like to buy them as well. And then on the other hand, you've got the major players in the manufacturing and distribution side, having a showcase, a platform for what's happening where the new product is concerned. And I think it's absolutely the case that 2 similar but contrasting entities can coexist side by side. Absolutely. And they're both good shows, but they're different. And, things that are good, and obviously the marketplace changes. Drum shows come and go. We've seen various events that were part of the calendar and no longer are, and other things that have come through. but I always think that it's a bit like playing. I can remember in the 1980s, early 1980s, when everybody said, right, that's it. Simmons kits, that's it. Acoustic drums, bye bye, over. And of course, we know that didn't happen. And with any of these innovations, the best of the innovations will always coexist alongside the best of what's already there. I mean, if there's something that's been going on in the drum world for a few years, and maybe the kind of grass has grown a little bit, and it's kind of maybe kind of lost its vitality, then these are the things that perhaps tend to fall by the wayside without a kind of a transfusion, if you will, of enthusiasm and inspiration to keep them relevant and an exciting draw for our drummer community.
Yeah, I've got a couple of people. Joe Morris, hi Joe. Anthony Sargent, that are watching. Gordon Kerr, hello. Chris Stafford, hello. Thank you for watching. Kenneth actually says, hi Rob. Earlier this year in Cardiff, you played for Victoria. Is it Kelwyn? In Cafe Jazz, lovely singer, and really enjoyed backing her Gypsy Jazz Jam. So I missed this stuff. Have you worked with her in a gig? Cheers.
Is that who's that for?
That's Rob. If you're Rob,
that's me, isn't it?
Yeah.
Victoria. Yes, I know Victoria well. Yeah, I play in a few different sort of lineups with Victoria. She lives just in Corsham, I think, not far from where I am now. But yes, well, thank you for coming. I don't recall the gig. I'm sure I was there and I'm sure I did it. But yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Ken. And Ken, it's good to see you here. And when we can get together, it'd be good to hang out again and talk drums and jazz. And I like your pictures, by the way. He's drawing little pictures for my son and sending them.
Oh, okay. I'll say.
Really sweet.
Thanks for clearing that one up because I wasn't quite sure, So
my wife put something about him not sleeping or being stressed, and he drew these things. Very sweet, very sweet.
Oh, bless. That's very kind. While you're there, Rob.
Yes.
Obviously, fortunately, so throughout, whether it's economy or I don't know what's going on, what would it mean to you if some of the big shows couldn't do it, and we just had maybe the smaller shows which are more affordable to put on over a weekend? Would that mean anything for you at all within the industry?
I think, like everyone said, there's room, just as there are with all the drummers out there doing their own thing. There's room for all these shows, and if people come along and pay to come along, people will put them on. And I think people like Simon and yourself putting these shows on, it's superb. I mean, and like Pete said, there are people that go to both. I bump into people that you see at the Manchester show or whatever, and they're like, hey, yeah, great, I'm here just to check out some vintage stuff. Why not? Brings all comers, and I'm really up for it because, like I'm sure we've all got a vintage little part of our storage. There's plenty of vintage stuff, and we've all got the new stuff with the new companies because that's how that works as well, and it helps us in our business. So I think both can coexist and should coexist, and maybe some more other random ones that can come up. I think it's a good thing. Choices is always a good thing.
Choices. So, what would happen, though, if for social distancing aspect, we just talked about that earlier, is that only these smaller shows could actually coexist with actually the guidelines of actually how to be in certain places. Would that be a complete disaster for industry? Ian, I'll pass that to you.
Social distancing being a disaster.
So we only have the smaller shows rather than the big shows where you get.
I think it's going to be a challenge. I think the industry is going to get more challenging. As I say, I think we've got to utilise every angle we possibly can. I think having an angle for these shows is vitally important. Tomorrow, I should have been running an event called Beats Working with Pete and Steve White, and Kaz Rodriguez, Pete Lockett, Don Familaro, and that was cancelled way back. But that event actually was starting to sell really well. So I'm thinking about how can I put that event. How we're going to run the event next year. But yeah, if social distancing is still in place, then that's not going to happen at all, because financially, it wouldn't work. The figures won't add up. I've got to sell, you know, basically three-quarters of the theatre to make it work financially. So it could be a challenge for concerts. I think globally at the moment, concerts are suffering. I was speaking to my Uncle Carl about it. He's saying with the ELP legacy band, I mean, that's been basically everything's been wiped off the map for the rest of the year. But in America, they're talking about doing drive-in concerts.
Yeah.
I know we can't have drive-in drum shows per se, but drive-in concerts. So I think there are, as I keep saying, there are positives to come from this. The online thing, I think we really need to nurture now and really need to work. And I think being able to do the Zoom masterclasses and maybe stream from these events. So I think we're going to be harnessing the power of the internet after this far better than we were pre-COVID-19. That's a positive. I think we're going to be looking for specific angles with these shows. The vintage show, the drum camp, we're going to have a specific focus on it that we can work on. The Beats Working event was a very basic drum show. There's none of those happening at the moment. My idea was to make it a bit like the old Zildjian Day format. Yeah. There's nothing like that happening at the moment. So I think if we are going to put events on, I think they're going to have to be, as has already been mentioned, they've got to be unique. They've got to have an angle. And it's got to be something that obviously an angle that appeals to people. So I think the drum camp, I think you really hit the spot with that, Matt. I think that worked well. And that's something you can really nurture. And I think having the experience of doing this Zoom session at the moment, I think is going to give you a great springboard to grow the numbers.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because I say it's one of those things where obviously because of February, you just hope there will be things in place, some kind of normality to actually get back, so we can actually do these things.
Just to say, Matt, just one other thing. This time last year, would you ever have considered doing a Zoom forum for guys to check in with the four of us? I mean, that wasn't on anyone's radar, I don't think.
Well, for me, this time last year, I ain't got a clue what Zoom was.
No, that's right. So look how far
we've never had to use it. So
yeah.
So I think there's definitely positives we can take.
Yeah. Brilliant. Glenn Jones, hi Glenn, thanks for watching. I think it's not just the show, some of the retail outlets are going to struggle also. That's actually a big one, because obviously there has been quite a demise, not necessarily just in the drumming, but obviously in all retail. The smaller independent retailers are going, because obviously, the likes of like the internet, obviously you can shop from your own home now. And one thing that, this is my personal graph, I'll ask you guys in a second, but people moan, so they put it all on social media, so I got this from like Amazon and stuff, and look how they they posted it, so I've got a dink in my cymbal now. Well, go to a drum show, go to a drum shop, go and select a cymbal, because we all know this. We use these to select our cymbals. We don't basically use a mouse, because they're all individual. So technology these days are great, but they still are all individual. So it's that kind of thing. It's like if we don't support our local, it's like small retailers, or it's like the guys that basically like do the second-hand stuff, sort of movement on. If we don't support these guys, yeah, they are going to go under. But how important, Pete, is it for you for having these like drums, basically drum shops they can literally just pop into? Because as I say, it was back in my day, my local was actually up in Norwich. You just basically just go in and have a chat sometimes with a cup of tea.
Well, the drum shows are just like they're like the macrocosm of the drum shop. Where I remember as a very young man in the 60s and particularly in the 70s, when I really started to get to know about what was that many times on a Saturday I'd go into Birmingham with my dad, and we always end up in the Yardleys, and there'd be loads of drummers there hanging out and talking rubbish and comparing licks and comparing cymbals and opinions and records and what have you. And the drum shows, which didn't really exist in that way back then. There used to be the annual music trade show in London, and then one year, and I first played there in 1979, Olympia. and then they moved it to the NEC in Birmingham. I played there in 1982. But that was originally, those had not been public events. Those were for the manufacturers, the distributors, and the retailers, and they would have, guest appearances by the great and the good of the industry. But they turned that over to the public, and that became. And the first one I particularly remember attending, because I didn't get involved in a lot of that stuff for many years. The first one I particularly remember was Drum Alive at the old Wembley Conference Centre. I thought, this is amazing. You've got the big clinics going on in the main stage. You've got the side rooms with some more niche artists playing, and then you've got all the exhibitors. You've got the manufacturers, the distributors, and the shops, and they're doing a roaring trade. And I think it was 2003 that I first went to Drum Alive, and I thought, this is such a good idea. And I started going to drum shows regularly. I thought, this is a new thing. And then on one particular fateful Saturday in 2006, I went for the first time to the National Drum Fair in Birmingham, and the events of that day completely changed my life. And yes, Mr. Palmer, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
You were doing a clinic on your white DW set.
You remember that, yeah?
And you said, hey, look, I'm thinking about doing a drum concert next year. Would you like to play? Yes. Yeah, I'd love to play. And I can look at that and say honestly that was a total game changer. It completely changed the way I work, and it gave me a lot of visibility in the industry that hadn't been there before.
You made a couple of big fans that day as well, and a couple of big allies I remember in Ian Pace and Steve White.
I think so, yeah. You can't say enough good things about great people like that who are genuine and supportive and sufficiently together up here and sure of themselves and confident that when they see a lesser known artist who they believe has some talent, they are totally behind you and supportive of you. Whereas there are other individuals, different types of personality, who when they see a lesser known artist with some demonstrable ability, that they're not quite so helpful. The people are different. Some people are funny. Some people are less. They feel like, hey, who's this guy? And sometimes they're not quite as encouraging, perhaps, as one might hope.
I think what we're looking at as well as an industry is keeping this community atmosphere together. And one of the things that I used to love as a kid, so Pete mentioned Yardley's, and I took my first ever drum lesson actually in Yardley's with the fantastic Malcolm Garrett as a young man. But then I made friends with the guys with John the Drum, the Birmingham Drum Centre. Yes. And these shops used to put on drum clinics in the back of a pub, and these were fantastic days. And I saw one of the first drum clinics I ever saw actually was our dear friend who's unfortunately no longer with us, but the great Chris Dagley. And I remember being absolutely mind blown by seeing Chris play on this Ludwig drum kit in the back of a pub somewhere in Solihull that this event that John the Drum had put on. And I think the sad thing is, we buy this equipment from Amazon, we buy this equipment from Thomann, and you get really good deals, and it's very reliable, and it comes through the post, and it's very little effort. But I don't remember the last drum clinic that Thomann put on.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Just a couple of things. Hi, Julia, Andre Vincent. Where's Warren? Alex Welllock. Hello, guys. It's one of those things for me. It's like I came to Birmingham rather late. It's like just before the turn of the century. It makes you sound old, doesn't it now? But it's to come study. But I knew all about these. As soon as I came up, it seemed that nice, really, it's like community, sort of John the Drum. I managed to actually go down in there, before they actually moved, before Chris actually obviously got the big sort of Birmingham sort of store. But these drum clinics you're talking about. So like my first one actually, I was very fortunate. I think I taught this both a couple of weeks. It's my uncle's a drummer, and so he's managed to keep me oh, can you come to this? Can you can you do so? Come with me. I'll show you kind of stuff. But there was one particular one. I was actually doing some work experience from school actually at the Cook's Band Instruments in Norwich.
Ah, I love Cooks.
Yeah. So and it was the I don't know why there was an anniversary, but it was the sort of 375th or 4th anniversary of Zildjian. Quite. It wasn't it wasn't a 400 or something. But I was lucky enough actually to work the weekend when they had a fantastic artist, and it's the first time I really knew of him. And I can because of these pathworks we've actually gone through. He's a dear friend, and that person was Neil Wilkinson. And I just said, who's this guy? Because it's like at that younger kind of age, just like you could hear stuff, but you didn't really know the people, didn't know who they played for, and stuff like that. And it's just like I can remember him setting up, so I helped him in. He sort of set up, he'd a few people helping him, and then when he played, it was like, wow. I've basically come to do work experience, and I've just been handed that on a plate. It was amazing, and obviously Neil's just an unbelievable player, such a nice gentleman. Just he's we can't say enough kind words about him, like the rest of you guys, to be honest. And if it wasn't for these shops, I wouldn't say, oh, I know Neil now, So, and then I followed him, and then so I got to know him through different paths and everything else. We've done some stuff together. So he's come to this other Palace Drum Clinic, trying to get him on here and do some other stuff as well. So it's it's that whole kind of community. So I think for me. It's the friendliness. It's about our community, whether it is at a drum show or drum shop, or even sometimes just giving each other a ring, seeing how they are, and basically just talking high neck of a donkey about tempo or something. So Rob, you was telling me earlier, because we've got our special guest next week. I won't tell you who it is. I'll save it to the end. But you was telling me earlier in the week about there was actually 4 of you basically working there. You went your separate ways, but fantastic separate ways. How much was that? Working with us 3 other fantastic drummers. How much was that helpful in that kind of situation? Was that helpful for you, or did you just have that inspiration, basically, oh, okay, they're doing that, I want to see if I can do this and all kind of stuff? Because obviously that was a little community itself in one entity, wasn't it?
In Bristol, are we talking?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, I said last week about, getting a bit kind of shy about playing for certain people, or when I go and see certain people play, I'll be trying to nick all their licks and checking them out and actually not enjoying the music. And, I think we all sort of matured together and realised that we were doing a bit of that to each other. As you do, you have to, you're sort of thinking, right, I'll take that, I'll have that. But what it does, the community, because you know each other and you're hanging with each other, it's more like a brotherly thing than, enemies or, I need to beat that guy. And I think the people that you're talking about, who you're not saying because of next week, there's a lot of love. Yes. And I think we sparred each other. Sparred here, I sound local now. We sparred each other on. Yes, I'm from the West Country. We spar each other on, and I think that's amazing. And again, that's one of the things about the drum community I was saying earlier, how we just all help each other. We say, yes, you want to learn this, I'll show you this, I'll show you that. And the shops, get into that. I mean, I used to work in assembly music in Bath with Steve Gardner, who used to bring in Sabian cymbals and sonor drums. And I think, Ian, you did a clinic for assembly music in the back of the pub. Yep. I was there.
Was that the Yamaha?
That's right, I was there. And they gave me my very first clinic back in the day. I used to sort of hang out with Steve, and I learned so much. But I remember, it must have been early 90s or something. I'd left by then. But he said to me, there's this newfangled thing called the internet, which is going to be the end of drum shops. And I was like, Steve, you're mad. You've been in this business for 30 years. This isn't going to happen. And then Sonor went their separate ways, and Sabian went a different way, and he just had the shop then at the end of that. And within 10 years, he was absolutely right, and he got out of the business. He'd had enough. But it's such a shame because, you know, what are you going to do when you need a pair of drumsticks at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? You can't ring Amazon. You know, that's not going to work.
That's it.
And just going there and hanging out, seeing all the different drummers, like Pete said, you used to see all the different. Clive Deemer would be in there, Ian Matthews, Eddie John, all the people from my area who are now going off and doing stuff. You know, we all used to hang out there, and the shops in Bristol. And that community is just dead in the water thanks to this thing called the internet, you know, which is a wonderful thing in many ways, of course. But yeah, I think I feel sorry for the younger drummers because they hear me in lessons and stuff talking about this stuff. And they must think I'm some sort of crusty old guy. Like, what are you talking about? But half of them at least say, that sounds amazing. What you could actually go and just hang out and try things out. And yeah, you can stay there all afternoon and just chat and learn stuff and just be part of that and go for a beer with somebody or let's go for a coffee. I'll show you what I mean. And just wonderful, you know.
That's great. Couple of hellos. Alex Warlock, hello. Josh, D, Gaynor, Richard Reed, Kev Pitt, Dave Hunt, hi Dave, Andy Jacobs, and again Annette Jackson. So Martin Ollie's actually like, which is, you know, it's quite a nice point. So there's a personal service you get from certain individuals who trade drum stuff. I used to get all my vintage Ludwig gear from Len Deald and Len Howe.
Oh yeah, I know Len.
So yeah, unfortunately Len passed away. And always made welcome to his house for a chat and try different stuff out. He repaired a Hercules hi-hat for me once, and so I waited. And it's like the gig of the same evening. You don't get that. It's like eBay or Amazon. Hi Tim Mackerel. Hi, nice to see you. It's one of those things where, you know, that's what we're trying to do actually at the Palace Drum Clinic. It's like, you know, one thing that I do say to everyone who come along is that you cannot stop the internet and ask it a question and get an answer, but you can at these events. You know, so these events are very, very important, you know, for the education, but, you know, and also for, you know, for the accessibility that we don't have these days, because obviously it's just a screen, you know, I can literally just type in, I can watch anybody around the world these days, but they're not accessible to me. But when you come to these kind of places, when you go to the shops, when you go to, you know, you don't know who's going to walk in. I was at sort of the Birmingham drum shop many moons ago with our dear old friend Gary Orcott. We just popped in because we was passing. I think we just like, and then a mate of mine actually actually came in and was like, then we was having a chat. Didn't know he was going to come. Actually, was working with him most probably like a couple of weeks beforehand, but I didn't know he was going to be there. And then all of a sudden, then, you know, we had like a little conference and everything else, like a little you know, little sort of chat on a sort of park bench kind of thing. And yeah, you don't get that kind of thing, unfortunately, with the internet, unless you're doing stuff like this, because you can ask us questions, which means if you've got any views on these guys, please go there. And also, if you've got if anyone's watching us who actually did come to the Palace Drum Camp, please put on how you feel it went. So, like, you know, tell all the other guys, because obviously we want you obviously to come back, but you want to bring your friends and all your other colleagues as well. You know, we don't want anyone's like missing out on such a fantastic event we had.
I think now you can bring your enemies as well, and because of social distancing, you don't have to sit next to them. Which brings me to another point, which I want to just throw into the mix before I forget about it. And that's about live shows. And there's an old fact. I've spent quite a bit of time, particularly through one phase of my life when I was dealing with regional theatres a lot of the time. And a lot of these venues have like flexible performance spaces. And one of their options was something that is in the industry is called cabaret seating. Okay, what cabaret seating is that instead of having rows of chairs in lines, is you have a table and you have like 6 or 8 chairs around it. And you know, I've done a number of shows that way with my band. And now we're allowed to get together in groups of 6. I see it as a very simple step forward from there to have venues set up with tables with 6 chairs around them and say, right, your table's that one, your table's that one, your table's that one, you know, order a drink or bring it to you. And it's a viable way of, you know, obviously you can't do this with massive acts, with massive overheads, but maybe one or two massive acts might think about stepping down a gear and playing in some smaller rooms just to help everything get moving and come on again. I mean, we all know that if everything suddenly went back to normal overnight and Glastonbury said, right, Glasgow's back on, you know it'd sell out the following day. It's pretty much a given. But it's all the stuff in the lower tiers of the industry that I think is potentially more fragile than that. And I think having, you know, it's obviously you've got to be able to accommodate a certain amount of people for it to work. But, you know, hotels, council-run venues, meeting halls have all. It's just a matter of how many square feet you've got. If you can have like, I don't know, 80 tables with six people sitting at each one, that's 480 people. If they're paying 15 quid a head, you can get a good show on the stage. But that, you know, less the overheads and the staff costs and all the other peripherals. But it is a viable business model that could get live performance moving again. Somebody should be paying me to come up with stuff like that. Cummings, I've got an idea.
Well, actually, can we name it? Because Mike Tubbs actually put the Palace Drum Cabaret. That's because he gives us. Yeah, we need a ba-boom-ching. There we are. Alex Knox is watching. Hello. Dan Gresham's watching. Hello, guys. Yeah, it's one. I think it might just be for Pete and Ian here. Chris Stafford saying, talking about John the Drum, etc. Do you guys remember Tony Richards?
I do remember Tony.
Yeah, very well. Very well.
In the late 70s, early 80s on Jazz Night, WABC radio on Sunday.
Yeah, I do remember Tony. He actually was my uncle, not Carl, but Uncle Steve's teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to like Tony a lot. I liked the way he played. I liked his attitude. He was very much a fan of players like Billy Higgins and you know, Art Taylor and all kinds of Al Foster. And you could hear that in the way he played. And Tony was very, I felt, influential in, you know, getting me aware of a lot of those kind of 1960s era blue note type players who were new to me. And, you know, I'm talking about my middle teens, like 15, 16, 17 years old, and finding out about a whole new division of players who became like the second or third wave of influences for me after the, you know, like Buddy and Louis Belson, Cooper, Joe Morello, like that, and then, you know, and people like, you know, again, this just encapsulates what we're talking about. You meet different people who know different things to what you do, who have different viewpoints, different perspectives to what those that you have. And it's all a big part of the lifelong learning process. And yeah, I remember Tony with a great deal of affection.
I remember there's a great video actually for anyone that's watching, which I stumbled across recently, and it was the Pebble Mill at One show on YouTube with Tony Richards, and John Patrick was playing piano, and the bass player's name, Pete will remember. It's on the ticket.
John McCulloch playing bass guitar.
On bass, yeah, exactly. But it was with Bobby Shue was playing.
I know the one.
Yeah, and that was fantastic to see that again. And that was sort of the people that growing up. These were the big guys in Birmingham at the time when I was in sort of my formative years. There, doing my practicing. But I'm just going to say very quickly as well. One thing that did occur to me is that I think when you get a level of proficiency on this instrument, and you know, like Pete now is going on to, and Rob going, and you, Matt, you know, you're known players, you have a responsibility to pass this passion on to the next generation. And I really think we need to keep, as a community, we need to keep the spirit, the passion alive. And I always remember that quote. It's been used a lot recently, actually. I think the government have been using it, but I always attribute it to Steve Gadd, and he always says, we're all in this thing together. You know, and as a drum community, we really are. And I think it's all of our responsibilities to look after the next generation and keep this instrument as vital as it's always been. You know, and take it into.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And because I'm the oldest of the four of us by a little distance, and because I've been around drums since my very very early childhood, I was influenced because my dad played and my grandfather was a musician as well. He wasn't a drummer; he was a saxophone player. So I had this living inheritance of their musical influences, going back to when my granddad was a young man in the 1920s, and all these 78 RPM records that are still in my mom's house. I had this kind of living inheritance of all that they'd seen and heard and talked about and read about and learned about. And because I'm, in industry terms, I'm a senior citizen, and I feel very responsible that what I've seen and experienced and learned as a result of it goes somewhere else, which is one of the reasons why I've been doing these silly little bite-sized drum videos on YouTube pretty regularly for the last 2 months.
I remember, Pete, that you were so kind to me in my formative years, and there were two specific events that I can remember that had a big influence actually on me, and you influenced me a lot, which is one of the reasons why I wanted you to come and do the world's greatest drummer show. But the first time I really got into your playing was at the Cannonball, and you were playing with Jean Toussaint.
Oh, I remember that.
You had the Sona drum set, and you had a beautiful old K, which you used on the left side with rivets in it. And have you still got that cymbal, by the way?
No, I sold it.
Oh, I was going to buy it off you.
it had sat on my wall for so long, and it sounded great, but it would only do. It was so light, it would only do certain jobs.
Well, I remember seeing you play with Jean Toussaint. That was the one, and then the second one was with our dear friend Gary Alcock, and you used to do a residency with the big band at the Hen and Chickens.
Oh, that's right, on Sunday nights.
Yeah, and you had
do you know what? It used to be the first Sunday in the month, and we'd get down there and set up, and they would open the doors. I used to get down there about 5:30, 6 o'clock to set up, and they'd open the doors at 7, and the gig would start at like 8:15 or something, and the people would be queuing outside, and they would run across, and these were not young people. They would run across the room to get the seats they wanted to sit in. That was such was their enthusiasm for a live show. These were people in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, and above, running across the room at this big venue in order to get pole position. Be nearest to the crowd.
Dear Peter Charles was singing, who sadly passed away last week.
That's right.
I remember Peter. Just to say one of the things, I've not to take over, but I remember you playing fours with Jean Toussaint, and these are the little things that I remembered, and it had changed my whole concept. I had a paradigm shift. You were playing fours, and every single one of them was so well thought out, because up until that point I'd seen people play fours with a jazz group trading fours, so little drum solo for 4 bars, saxophone player plays 4 bars and drums, and you played so beautifully that a lot of the guys at that time I saw were just scrambling around, just trying to fill in the holes, and you were just effortless. One of the things you didn't do was play a crash on beat 1 when you came back in.
Never.
I'd always seen people do that.
There's a schoolboy error.
I know. I saw people do so. Crash. Yeah, but you were just so beautiful the way you did it. It was just effortless, and you just flowed straight back into the time. There was that, and there was one other thing that you did really beautifully as well, which I always remember. You could always finish the piece beautifully. So and it was always just beautiful at the end, the way you tailored things off. So that's that's a couple of things that I got from you, and that's what attracted me to your playing early on, Pete.
Well, as you can tell, there's a bit of a bromance happening here. But
there's always been a bromance.
It's been
That's why I always have Pete on every single gig I can.
Glenn Jones has just said, whatever the question, answer is always Steve Gadd. I think that's what you said, Ian.
I think that's what Kirsty said actually. So I
Good.
was doing one of my live streams, and
Couple of
Kirsty.
highs. Justin Chambers, Mark, hi, Mark, Jeff, Darren Hampton, Paul Hughes, Tim Tamler, Rachel Ayres, and Lizzie. Well, hello, guys. As I say, I've seen a few names on there. Please tell us what you think about, like, the events that we put on, at the Palace Drum Clinic, or actually the camp. Is there anything else that you'd like to see us do in that kind of that live situation, or talking about the kind of social distancing, is there something you'd like to see us do actually online as well, which would help you guys out in the virtual world? So please,
as long as it doesn't involve nudity or live animals, we're all good.
so that's just Pete talking. He won't, but the rest
I
of us.
remember we had the camp companion, didn't we?
Yeah, the camp companion.
Everyone needs
Yes.
a camp companion.
Yeah, so the camp companion. For people who don't know what the camp companion was at the weekend. This is the camp companion. Hopefully, you can all see. Take a look. So, what the camp companion was, this is my little secret. So, I'm not going to share too much with it, but it's basically the details of basically what went on throughout the whole weekend. And so, obviously, because it starts with the C, you can get the camp companion in there. So that's the reason why it's a C. But yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know about you guys, but I still have mine to hand, and because I've got all your material in there, because we've got some fantastic stuff going on, and I've been speaking to a few people just recently, and they're still using the stuff that out of this in their own warm-ups, their own learning stuff like that. So, it's quite a very, very good tool to have.
I've still got my camp T-shirt, Matt, as well. So I hope I'm going to
me
get another
too.
gig.
Well, keep them for next year. Just don't put too much weight on, because I can't afford some more. Hi, Terry Sherrod Senior, Martin Riley. Hi, how you doing? But yeah, please put in the comments. How you perceiving how these live events, because obviously for me, it's all about live. I'm a live performer. I love playing to live. I love playing to an audience, whether it's like 4 or 5 people or 4 or 5,000 people. It doesn't make a difference to me. I just love performing. Rob, we had a discussion, I think maybe on our first time you came up to the Palace Drum Clinic, that you said if you go back 10 years, you could actually make your money through basically just doing drum clinics. Obviously, there was a lot about. Because of demise, obviously, the internet, some fantastic things are actually going on,
Yeah,
but
of course.
but because of that kind of, I think someone described it as there's a generation of basically instant basically because you just get your phone out and just basically watch anything or look something up or where's this kind of thing. It's an instant generation. How can we basically get back to those glory years, or are those glory years gone now? Do you think?
Glory years, we don't know their glory years till they're gone, I suppose. But I mean, forget lockdown. Let's pretend we're not in lockdown. Yes, they can come back. At the moment, we all know it's going to be a different scenario. But yes, I believe they can come back if, people like yourself believe in the fact that they can put something on, people will come. You build it, they will come. It's that kind of thing. So I don't think we should think that day has gone. We just have to find new ways of putting them on, because otherwise they will disappear. If we all sit around thinking, "Oh, we can't do that," that's not a good idea, or we couldn't possibly. Then nothing.
That's really important. Really important.
Yeah.
There's a bit too much emphasis in the wider world at the moment about what we cannot do.
Exactly.
And it's kind of spreading this miasma of negativity around that a lot of people are subconsciously buying into. And I think for myself that we've all four of us have beyond the obvious, we have one particular thing in common that we've all done at one time or another. We've been directly involved in putting on events. From small events up to really quite big concerts and really quite large venues, and you do your best and you work a date and you try very hard to get people to come and support you, and a lot of times they do, and then a lot of times people say, oh, you know what, oh, it's tomorrow, I'll go next time. But what we now have and have experienced since the latter part of March is what it would be like if there was no next time.
Yeah.
You know, this 2 months has been the no next time scenario. Okay, no more gigs, no more shows, no more. You know, it doesn't matter where it is, whether it's in a jazz gig in the back of a pub or in a stadium. This is no more next time. And you know, so before you think about your Netflix and your Fire Stick, or you know, if you're old school, your DVD or whatever, or sitting at home and watching YouTube, please come out and be somewhere with us and a whole bunch of other like-minded people. Because what we've been going through now is the no next time scenario.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
As I say, just on the Camp Companion, Ian, we've actually got a couple of people said, yes, I'm using it, very helpful. I've always got my Camp Companion to hand. So it's a fantastic thing. So thank you guys for actually using it. Richard Horton, dear friend of us, you know, he's got...
I got Richard Horton. I got to jump in and give a shout out to Richard Horton, because Rich, I think it was 1982, was my first ever private drum student. I went right. He lived around the corner from me, and in Worcester Lane, and I went round and gave him a drum lesson. He hasn't changed a bit. So
there we are.
Richard Horton was number one. Chris Dagley was number two.
There we are. Well, he's basically said all the PDC events are great. You've opened doors and helped my rods. These are cozy drum rods. Please look at them; they're fantastic. My rods reach people I could not reach with great results. And I suppose that brings us to another thing. It's like, you know, we're obviously coming from, like, you know, the National Drum Fair Committee, and obviously having seen, you know, what some of the smaller people out there got ideas, you know, it's like, you know, but they can't go to these larger shows, or basically go, you know, I have seen some great things span from this like many years of the NDF, and that's the kind of thing I wanted to take on to this. So I do support, you know, local guys. Any event I do, if we go around to, like, you know, especially local areas, I try and include sort of local drum shop or music shop to try and get them involved. And they go, so, oh, really? And then so I go, oh, we had a great day. Well, I know you will do, you know, because it's like the drummers do like to spend a little bit of money on accessories and stuff like that. But it's, you know, if we didn't have the people, you know, with these inventions and like innovations of different things, how are they going to get themselves out there? So supporting these kind of events, you get to see stuff that you don't normally see sometimes as well. You know, I know we are very well supported with the industry. It's like, you know, we always give raffle prizes, and I think to date we've given maybe like around about £2,000 worth of raffle prizes away so far. So that's one thing to come along to. But it's without that kind of community sort of spirit, go, oh yeah, it's like, you know, have this, you know, it's like, this would be great for somebody, it's like, you know, then hopefully that will sort of open up this, that and the other. And Rich is just like one of those people, you know, to make you feel that slightly bit older, Pete. Do you know Richard actually is retired?
Yeah, he was a firefighter.
He's a firefighter, so
Yeah.
it's like,
Let's just keep this thread going for one moment longer. I just happen to still have the packaging.
oh,
Cozy drum rods, sticking
Brilliant.
alternatives.
Yeah.
Buy some today. They're great.
Well, I met Richard at the drum camp. So hi, Richard. It's good to see, or good to hear from you again.
yeah. So you never knew of each other before, hadn't you?
No,
So
I know. And also, I gather now he's a local boy as well from
Leicester.
Richard's mom played piano,
Oh.
and she was she was on the teaching staff at my junior school.
Oh.
And in 1973, the school Christmas production was The Wizard of Oz. It was Richard's mum on piano and me on drums.
Mrs. Horton.
Yeah, well, what was Richard's mum's first name? I don't know.
Mrs. Horton. Miss Horton.
Richard's mum.
That's what we were like then as kids, you know.
Hi, Emma Rose. Sorry, Bill, I cut off. Yeah, but no, so say it's, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, even, you know, because I think, well, especially last week we had Todd Zuckerman in, and obviously it's the whole kind of thing as, you know, and we were having a little chat afterwards, because we have a little chat afterwards. We call it this, like, you know, it's like after show party from the green room, you know, thank you very much. Just to have a chat and catch up on, you know, on you know, because we're talking to each other, but we don't really sort of catch up in this kind of sense. And we was talking to Todd afterwards, and Todd knew of Pete, and so the whole kind of cater, and it's like, and then Rob was basically, they were talking to each other, and it was just like, we're actually bringing each other together. It doesn't matter what level or it's like, focus you are within it's like the world of spectrum of it's like drumminess kind of thing. People always love to meet other people, and generally, that circle always comes around. It's like 3 steps away from stardom. It's and so in this kind of place, Ian didn't know Richard. They'll put them together. Richard's a great player. He's got some great stuff going on, and so hopefully, Ian might pick a pair up and go, well, this is great. So, and then, do you know what I mean? So it starts the ball rolling with all this kind of stuff. As I say, we've got some comments here. Great rods, got the lighter ones. Mick Driver, hi Mick. So these kind of events, sort of, it comes back to us like, what is the importance of the drum camps, the drum shows, anything that basically goes on within the calendar. It's vitally important, and because I don't think we've actually touched on this, guys, yet. But how many drummers do you meet on a gig?
Yeah, true.
I mean, so the only time we can hang is basically these.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
I do think this whole thing about the sense of community, though, and the little thing, not only the teaching side from the drum camp, which of course is fundamental, but it's just that community atmosphere, which is now bringing people back this evening to watch so we're all in this together. We all are sharing ideas of something that we're really passionate about. One of the things I remember as a young boy coming through was just how wonderful all of the drummers were, particularly when you met the great drummers, just how kind and how helpful they were. And I think it's really important we keep that spirit alive and not get into this scarcity mentality where there's not enough, and this is my gig and this is very, really protective and my student, and there's plenty to go around. Just need to keep that community atmosphere alive and do our bit to inspire the next generation.
Because the thing is, we have something said about, we're giving back, but I don't know about you guys, but I still watch stuff, and even you guys at the camp I took so much away from your playing, and I just try to, put some stuff, some elements that I like from every one of you, so I then put it into my own kind of way of playing stuff like that. Do you find that the same still now? Is that you actually are, even in drumming terms, obviously we're, Pete said he's the senior citizen, but I still don't believe that.
I'm not a senior citizen, I'm the senior citizen.
Yeah,
of the quartet here this evening.
But are you still like being inspired by certain people that you see, maybe ones that you don't know of, beforehand and stuff like that? Because obviously it's the whole kind of, I always say to my students, you're on a journey. There's never a destination with this thing. As soon as you've got a destination, that's it. You give up, kind of thing.
It's really true.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I think the importance of one of the things I've discovered recently, we all had a bit of a shock when we thought that Rhythm magazine was going to close, and then Louise and Rob and Clive resurrected it. So I subscribed straight away to Rhythm magazine. I subscribed to Modern Drummer. I saw there was an article, a webcast online that Modern Drummer did, talking about the 10 best drum books. And Dom Famularo was talking about these, and actually his second one, he said Stick Control was number 1, which I'm sure is true for a lot of us. But he said number 2 are the magazines. You can get so much information from there. So I can't, I don't have the magazine in front of me, but there was a fantastic drummer that I put on my Facebook page. You got the latest Modern Drummer there, and he's a guy.
Oh no, I've got the latest rhythm. I've got the latest rhythms. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, this guy was playing this kind of Latin version of, it's like a Dave Weckl. He was from Cuba, but he was playing like in the style of Dave Weckl. There was a little bit of Horatio Hernandez in there, but it was it was his own take on the styles that we're so familiar with. So buying into magazines, having a subscription to magazines, equally important for our community.
Yeah. But for people who who are not familiar with rhythm, I'm just literally just referring to this. They've actually called it beats working, but you can see it's from I don't see the camera there. It's probably a bit small, but it's a little bit bright. But it's lessons from like very very well respected people. It's like learning. Maybe sometimes you think it's the simplest thing, but you maybe don't know actually how to actually break it down and play it yourself. And it's absolutely, and it's the top tips and everything else. For instance, Pete Lockett, amazing Pete Lockett, he's literally talking about it's like how you actually play the shaker properly. How many people just basically just pick it up, because obviously, he is one of the world's, in my eyes, is basically sort of one of the best multi-percussionists, multi-award winning, he's played everyone, sells out everywhere he goes kind of thing. It's, for someone to say, well, actually, breaking it down, have you thought about what you're physically doing? And they're absolutely fantastic. There's, look, I've just flicked to Vulcan Dark Master Cymbals.
Good boy, the check's in the post.
I just literally... and that was
that one. Boo, boo, that's awesome.
I wasn't on purpose.
You kick on the block.
The reason why basically we're laughing is because that's actually Rob's. That's his cymbals that he's playing on Vulcan at the moment. But so it just flicked it open. It's like I never actually heard or seen Vulcan until I actually saw Rob actually playing them. These magazines are great, and there's some articles on there. There's some gear reviews. They're absolutely fantastic. It's this one's basically just the January version, which is basically for February, which is all about NARM, basically one of NARM. But it's the internet. If you haven't subscribed, obviously there's not anything coming out at the moment. But you can still get sort of the back catalogue ones of these ones, I believe. I was just going
to say as well, guys, I've got the code. If anyone is interested in subscribing to Modern Drummer, if you subscribe online and use the code in capital letters MDTAP, MDTAP, you'll get a discount on your subscription as well. Brilliant. My little bit of selling for the boys.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, can you? Are you online? Can you put that in the comment box?
On the bottom, yeah. MDTAP, and if you do that on the line, you'll get it. And in fact, the person that's just taken over Modern Drummer is I'm only literally putting it as MDTAP in there. So that's if you want to get a discount on the subscription. But the person who's taken over Modern Drummer, who has actually bought the business, who's now the publisher, is a guy called David Frangioni, who's was one of the brains behind Pro Tools. He's a big studio guy, but he's a drummer first and foremost, and he's made so much money out of it that it really, to buy Modern Drummer was just pocket change really for him. But he's so enthusiastic about it. He's got Don Famularo now as the educational director for the magazine. I think he realizes that maybe print is something which has a limited shelf life now, but he's looking at developing the online side of things, the online content. He's doing webcasts as well. So I think we really as a community need to support these. It's great to have David running Modern Drummer now, or at the helm of it, funding it.
No, definitely. Couple of things. Hi, David, Dave Etheridge, Aaron Gold, nice to see you. These are part of us, I suppose we should have actually included these because it's one of those things where, how important are these? Well, they're just as important to everyone. Oh, Kevin Cook, hi Rob, nice to see you, man. Where did you get the Buddy Rich poster behind you? Well, like everything, gets everything from me.
That's where I got it from. Yeah, and it cost me how much?
I'm liking all these comments as we're going through.
If you ask, you can't afford
by the way, hi Kevin.
Yeah, if you ask, you can't afford it. But no, it's just like, they're absolutely fantastic. All these kind of stuff, they need your support because obviously, it's like these live events. If you can't basically get to a live event because, as Pete said, I'll do that next time, there may not be a next time. If you don't subscribe and get these magazines, there may not be a next issue because there's everything else.
There was an outpouring online when we thought that we'd lost Rhythm Magazine. People were genuinely upset about it. It's such a big part of our community.
Yeah.
We need to keep all of these resources going.
Just going back, so we sidetracked off the question. Actually, I must just want to you, Pete, first. Is there somebody that that maybe people are not aware of in the drumming community that's actually inspired you recently?
Just for Pete.
This is Pete. Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
So somebody, I'm sorry, that people are not aware of.
Yeah, so not a big name or that kind of stuff. You maybe
Oh,
use.
there are all kinds of because of
Hey, Jake.
the very niche quality of uh, the music, the musical style, with I suppose for which I'm best known, which is big band stuff. There are all kinds of players who, they're known to a very few. One of my favourites is right here. I've got about 2% of my CD collection here. Is Nick Ceroli, who made 4 great
Oh
big
yes.
band albums with Bob Florence between 1979 and when he passed away in about 1985.
He was also known as the drummer with Dudley Moore, wasn't he? I believe at one point.
No, he was the live drummer with Herb Alpert, and he used to do the Merv Griffin show
Okay.
Ah, okay.
on television in the States for years and years and years, along with Herb Ellis on guitar. I think Ray Brown was on
Oh,
bass.
the LA4 is it?
Loads of great jazz horn players, and yeah, there are lots of players who are, I guess, not widely known in to the current generation of musicians, but who were massively influential. The first clinic I ever saw, and here's somebody who was known throughout the drum industry, but not primarily for his playing, was Roy Burns, who, of course, we all remember from the Aquarian Corporation. And Roy was an incredible player. And I saw him when I was about 9. And I thought, this is amazing. This is the kind of stuff I've heard on my dad's records, and I've seen a little bit on television. But just being there in the same room, watching it being done at such a level of expertise is incredibly moving and profoundly influencing. And when you get those influences so early in life, they really, what's that old saying? Give me the child and I'll give you the man, or whatever. It's not a precise quotation, but those things that you get early on are so informing. You're soaking up all this information like a sponge, and it's some of these players who not household names in the modern drum world. That because I've been around quite a while. And I'm just looking at my records to see the few CDs I've got in this room. If there's anything else? Oh yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Another great favourite. And I would say, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this: the most swinging ride cymbal jazz time pattern you'll ever hear, and it's not Mel Lewis, and it's not Nick Ceroli, who I was just talking about. It's a gentleman by the name of Duffy Jackson on this Lionel Hampton album called Made in Japan, which is nothing to do with Deep Purple. And Duffy, he had quite a profile for a while back in the early 80s, and we became friends in the 90s. And one time, I've been doing a gig in Paris, and just if I may sidetrack for a moment, to me, gigs are not jollies; they're not holidays. It's something you do. You're going to work, and I've been to Paris to do this one-nighter, and Sally, my wife, said, "Oh, I'd like to go to Paris." So we went to Paris again about a week after I'd done this gig, and stayed in this lovely little hotel. And there was a jazz club right around the corner, and Duffy was playing in there the same night that I turned up in town. But the best ride cymbal groove I think I've ever heard. It's swing, never hear anybody swing harder than Duffy.
Cool.
So yeah, another name that people just don't know, and it's a shame.
Yes, there's so much. I can remember. I actually sorted out a clinic with dear old Jim Chapin. I took him down to Colchester, to Paul Francis Orchard Percussion just outside Colchester, and he was obviously staying with Malcolm Garrett at the time, and I was driving. It's about 2.5 to 3 hours down there. Dear old Jim was in the front. He said, "Hey, Mac, can I play my pad?" He played his pad all the way down, all the way back as well, and he did the 2 hour clinic, bless him. But Mel was in the back, and they just kept firing out all these names I've never heard of. It's, oh yeah, great, yeah, he was on that guy. Oh, he played great. Yeah, oh yeah, great. They all remembered basically these guys I've never heard for. But it was such a lovely site. I was going down memory lane, and I had never heard of these guys. But the stories they were telling between them, so I just remember one guy, Jim's like, Malcolm was saying, then they'll all be off kind of thing, and so then Jim would say, yeah, great. He slightly held his stick this way. He's like, how do you know these things? But
Yeah.
because obviously they were there, weren't they? So it's
Memory lane can be a good place to visit, but if everybody who's down there are strangers to you, then you probably need to spend a bit more time there.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
We actually got a question, so we'll come if we've got time. We'll come back to the other question. But from Kevin Cook, a question for everybody. I'll start with you, Rob. So listen up. A question: how much has your setups changed since you first started playing, and what was the most important change you made? Nice question, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said last week, for me, they constantly change with the sort of projects that I'm doing. So it could be like a little jazz kit, or it could be a bigger kit with two or three floor toms, three rack toms, more cymbals and stuff. And when I'm on my own, just thinking I want to go play drums, I might pull out the old Ludwig kit or the Rogers and sit down and play that. I think for me, as I say, it's genre specific and artist specific, but I think it's really important to keep those changes. I mean, I was just recording.
Rob, how much has your setup changed since you first started playing?
Well, I still play a 4-piece kit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still go back to that. I mean, I was recording today with a 6-piece, but, if I was going to go in again tomorrow, I know I'd put that to one side and I'd get the 4-piece back out and I'd play that. I got a Premier kit. My dad was a jazz drummer. Then he bought me a little Premier resonator, which is silver. I wish I still had it, actually. It was a lovely little drum kit. And that was my kit. And I went on to see all my great heroes like Joe Morello, Buddy, Ian Pace had an extra floor tom, obviously it was a bit bigger, but they all played kits that didn't have 2 rack toms like everyone else did in the 80s. And that was my first setup, and as a setup I always go back to. I can't help it, it's just something I feel at home doing, whether it be a blues gig or a jazz gig, maybe not a prog gig, but I'll try and rock that 4-piece wherever I can. Love it. I think it's just an amazing format.
Yeah, Ian, has anything changed since you first started?
Well, my very first ever drum set was a Premier Resonator drum set as well, and that was 22, 12, 13, and 16. So that was a 5-piece drum kit. Very soon after then, I started playing a 4-shell drum kit, and then for many years I was using a 10 and a 12 rack tom, and that was it. And I think that was kind of the GAD inspiration. But over the past couple of years, I've gone back to that 4 or 5-piece drum kit with 2 floor toms, 1 rack tom, and that's really been about it, to be honest. I really took a couple of things from Robert there, where he said that Rob, he said that I used the correct gear for the gig. Yeah, that's absolutely. And you also said another thing, Rob, which really resonated with me. You just said, I regretted selling that drum kit. And I've been awful over the years for just selling drum kits and changing everything wholesale on a whim, deciding, well, I want to go for this now, and I've had enough of that. And the interesting thing has happened since we've been in lockdown. I've been practicing a lot more. I've been playing a lot, probably as much as I did when I was a teenager, doing all of my wood shedding then. And the interesting thing has happened is that I've got really into my setup now. It's very precise. The changes now are not wholesale changes. It's maybe a millimeter. It's just a tiny change here and there, which now that I've been practicing more, I'm more acutely aware of. And actually, my desire to buy more drums has sort of disappeared with the amount of practicing that I've been doing. So it's almost inversely proportional to the amount of practice that I do.
That's all right. We can give you therapy to buy more drums in. That's not.
Yeah, just see Matt. He'll spend your money for
I'll
you.
spend
Don't
your money
worry.
for
But
you.
a lot of people do that though, don't they? A lot of people
Yeah.
just go out and buy drums. They sell drums, they buy drums, and they're forever searching for something. You know, the whole thing is changing the whole time. And since I've been practicing a lot and playing a lot more, I've really, honestly, I've lost that desire to go out there and buy new equipment. I'm actually quite happy now with the setup that I'm using.
Mm.
Yeah.
As an addition to the question, what about seat heights and angles, stuff like that? Has that changed? Because I can remember my seat basically was very low when I started because I had my uncle's kit. I actually had a little four-piece Canon kit, a little jazz one, so a little 18-inch bass drum. And I wish I didn't, I actually part exchanged it with my uncle for the Remo Master Touch, which he got in from America because he was endorsed at the time. So I had that. So obviously it was like the 80s, late 80s. So I had the power tom. So you can actually see me behind my drum kit, and so I got introduced to like Jeff Porcaro and stuff, and all those guys sat very low. So I sat very low, and it wasn't really till so I was in my late teens. I was like, well, I don't want my ride cymbal up here, but I'll make. It's like take that tom away. That's great there, and then obviously that four, most probably sort of 2 floors or anything, came into play, and it just felt very. My seat has actually crept up, whether it's because I've grown, obviously since I was a little kid, but my seat actually has gone up because I've just felt, it's more weight in the legs. You don't have to work as hard, do all sort of stuff. So mine actually is drastically, but. I think it's like all of us because we've had to play on so many different kits, in the past that it's like as long as you most probably get like your seat and your snare drum sorted, then you most probably you're okay. You can actually just it's over there rather than just like there. You just have to get your head around it kind of stuff. So for me, it's like it doesn't matter where I'm sitting. It's as long as I've got that adjustment there and there. So I'm actually posture and everything else is all good. It doesn't matter where the things are for me. But if I'm playing on one of my kits kind of thing, I know because I've got I've got vintage kits and I've got modern kits kind of thing. They all have their own setups, so I play on different setups because of the nature of the actual instrument itself. So that's just a little thing for me. I have changed things. I play around with it, but I try not to play around too much. It's like, right, it's there. Can I reach it? Great. Let's get on and actually play. Pete, has anything changed for you? I don't think there has.
No, I've just been an advocate of the simple, basic set of drums. I was sitting here this afternoon, and like Ian, I've been putting in loads more time at the drums in the last couple of months. And this afternoon, I was playing some things I've never played before. And one of them I liked so much, I actually wrote it down. But look at it this way: if you play the piano, it's 88 keys, black notes and white notes, and you might. I remember when I first started doing gigs, all the piano players in the 70s, they were always using Fender Rhodes pianos, either the 73 note or the 88 note, and they weighed a lot. And because I was young and strong, I would always get lumbered with helping the piano player in and out with the Rhodes, even though I've got stuff of my own to take. And then a few years after that, in about 1983 or 4, suddenly everybody wanted a Yamaha DX7. And they would put the Yamaha DX7 on top of the Rhodes, and it had, I think, 61 note keys, made different sounds, but still played it the same way. And the Moog, all these different, you see pictures of like Rick Wakeman and people like that with all these different keyboards. You play the same stuff. The techniques and mechanics of playing the instrument remain the same. It's just another texture. It's just another color. And when you boil it all down, you can play. You just go back to the old upright piano in your sitting room, and you can still play all your stuff. You might want to express it differently by the use of different colors and effects. And for us, that could be different types of artboard gear, more exotic types of symbols. But what you actually play remains the same.
Yeah. Yeah, Gordon Kerr, hi Gordon. Rob Case, hello. They're watching. Gordon has actually said, do Pete and Ian remember my dear friend and great Brummie drummer Mike Evans, who was a
very well.
manager.
Yeah,
He played
absolutely.
drums on the Goodies show and often played on Pebble Mill at 1. and he said, "Hi, Kit." He's seen Ian's old white Yamaha in Birmingham Drum Centre. I had big kits in the past, but now he prefers the basic 4 showers. There's a lot of popularity going back to the basic 4 showers. So I think it was just, for me, it's just, I just can't be bothered on a gig to put more drums out.
Well, there's also that, isn't there? Absolutely. I really like what Pete said, and Pete turned my head when he was talking about the virtues of just using a basic setup with the 4 shells, ride cymbal, maybe 2. I think Morello used to use just 1 ride cymbal and a 4-piece set on occasions. No crash cymbal, no anything.
Mm.
Really simple.
Well, you often have one over here, like a crash ride or something. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Just before you close, I was just going to say that I've just come up with those. I've just found those 2 names of guys that were really inspiring me as a result of investigating them through Modern Drummer.
Okay.
And the one drummer I was thinking of, who's probably a little known, but I think he's starting to make waves on the LA scene, on the sort of the jazz Latin side, is a drummer called Jimmy Branley. So he's worth checking out. And the other guy I came across recently, who I should have learned more about before, Dave DiCenzo, who's a fantastic player as well. And he's kind of got an interesting take on sort of the guys you've heard before. So it's not worlds apart, it's not totally brand new. You can see his influences, but he's got an interesting take on things. And I think both of those guys are very similar in that way. But really,
I first came across Dave DiCenzo on one of the Modern Drummer Festival 2 DVD packages.
yes,
And those things used to come not quite every year, but almost every year. There'd be a new one, and there'd be some big old drum royalty on there, who we all know, the household names, Gad, Michael, Vinny, Bob, whoever. And then there'd be the new guys as well. That was where I first heard Jojo Mayo. I think he was on the 1997 recording. And these things were great because they, you'd have like 2 discs with like 5 hours of material and lots of people you knew, and they were the big pull. They would, get the numbers as far as the sales were concerned. And then you have all these great new, interesting players who were, just breaking through, and that to me was a very, very well balanced, very well thought out kind of approach to the presentation of drums and drummers, where you've got the established guys, and you've got a bunch of fresh faces as well. I like that. I like that kind of interaction.
Yeah, definitely. Rob, we haven't come to you. Is there anyone out of the norm that you've picked up recently that you're thinking great?
I tend to sort of flick through the YouTube things, and they come and go. Sometimes I log in names, sometimes I don't. But I must confess, I've been looking back. Actually, I saw Ian Pace. He said in an interview that like he loves the drummers now. Those are great stuff, but he likes to go back and see what's happened and bring some of that back with him. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of going back and researching some of the drummers that I think, I know the name, but I don't actually know what he or she did. So it's about time I find out, And,
yeah, I do that a lot. I jump in my DeLorean and I go back in time. I go listen to Shadow Wilson on 52nd Street.
It's brilliant, man. I tell you, it makes you feel good.
Yeah. Hi, Ollie Lewis. It's amazing how basically we set up at 8:30, and it's like we've only got a few minutes to go, guys. Till 10 o'clock. Thank you all for your comments. It's one of the things. If we can just come back to the original questions, like how important really is the drum. Hi, Mike's watching. It's just like drum shows and it's like drum camps, and clinics and that kind of stuff. That I think you can tell, but basically the passion of of us basically talking to you about it all evening, is that it's so essential that you need to support the community that we try to go on, because we've all tried to put on. So Ian's done some fantastic. How many years did you do the world's greatest drummer? That was at 6.
We did 10 events
An event.
over
Here we are. Do you know what I mean? So
13,
I missed a few.
14 years, yeah. But
Yeah.
we'll revisit it as well. We'll come back to it at some point. It's definitely not dead and buried.
Yeah. So it's it's that kind of thing that it's they're really hard. Fantastic events. There's not just literally just because obviously the actual wonderful playing. So you see on the stage, but obviously you hang about with slightly people from all around the country coming to these things. So when we can do it, please just go and support. Even if it's just basically like the local it's like band that are trying to break through. Because you've got to remember once even the Beatles were just a local band trying to break through. And you saw it's that kind of thing. If you see these guys, you can follow them, and if they got good stuff, they've got good stuff. At the end of the day, so please just support all your local stuff. It's sport terms they call it the grassroots. So it has to be supporting it from that level upwards. Coming to places like this, coming to even now you can't do stuff, but there's things online like Pete's just started up a fantastic thing. He says only it doesn't even cost you a cup of coffee virtually, a week kind of thing. Guys like that. There's these places. Oh, hi Alex, watching. Kevin Cook, thanks for the answer, chaps. In the same vein as my last question. Head selection purely driven by the gig you're doing, or is it personal preference? Well, can I answer that for everyone? I think it's both, really, isn't it? You get your personal preference. You like your stuff that you play on, but you wouldn't do, for instance, you wouldn't play that on for a heavy metal gig. You would do well, none of us have done heavy metal gig for a while, have we?
Recently.
Yeah, I'm free for one. I'll tell you, if everyone's got, I'll do one.
It also depends on the wood of the drum as well for me.
Yeah.
Birch shells, harder shells, I tend to use thicker heads. Maple shells, I use single ply heads.
There we are. So it is literally down to hi Howard, Chris Stafford. Really enjoyed tonight's talk show. Thanks to you all. Well, no, thanks to you guys for listening. Because I say, if you weren't listening, it literally just be a four-way chat, which nothing wrong with us because we could talk all day long about it.
Can I just get a quick thing in, Matt, before we finish, just to let everyone know about Monday, 12:30. I'm doing my online session on Ian Palmer drummer. I'm doing a Zoom masterclass every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. If anyone's interested, that is a paid event. I'm charging £15 per person for that. And then at 3 o'clock every Friday, I'm doing a Facebook live chat with different people. So last week, Brian Bennett came back. You've been along to
I've been
chat.
on, yeah.
Simon Ed Goose has been along. I'm going to rope in Pete and Rob at some point. So
yeah, no, yeah, I've obviously I've been on Ian's thing, and it's fantastic having that actually. Ian's one of those people. It's like he's always like putting stuff on program. And look, I'm doing, and it's a privilege to actually get asked to do something, and it's like not worry about what if I've got a question, I've got to keep this running, and everything else. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I'd like to say a big thank you again to my resident panel, Rob Bryan and Pete Cater. Unfortunately, Pete won't be here next week through circumstances. I think he's going to take his idea of all the smaller jazz clubs and see how a solo drum kit clinic does around everywhere behind closed doors like the football's doing. So we won't see him next week, but a big thank you to Ian as well. Please go for the Ian Palmer drummer on his Facebook. He's got some great stuff. Like these all guys, they're doing some great stuff at the moment during this lock. So when we can all do it, no problem, guys. As I've got lots of thanks. No problem, guys. Thank you for listening in. We'll be here again next week at 8:30, going live with. It's one of one of Rob's old mates. Really, we talked about him quite early on, but I didn't want to mention him. He's played for a little band called Kasabian. It's Ian Matthews going to be joining us next week, and we're going to have a chat with Ian and Rob. So thank you guys ever so much for watching. You stay safe now. Let's get back to what we need to be doing, but we need to everyone to basically stay safe, and then we can get back quicker. So thanks again from the panel. Thanks Ian for being our special guest. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again live next Saturday at 8:30 on the Palace Drum Clinic channel. Okay, thanks so much guys. Take care.